and welcome to the Hotkeys podcast, a show about pop culture and everything random in the world. I'm your host today, Will, and I'm joined by
Landon Browning,
Colby Chapman,
and David Parker.
Michael is mysteriously absent today. He had an emergency, I think, to attend to.
Yep.
We'll go with that. Yeah, welcome. What's today's date? Is it the 2nd?
Yep, the 2nd.
What's significant about the 2nd, Landon?
It's the day after my special birthday. I'm 26 years old now.
26 years old. How does it feel to be a third of the way to death?
I think I'm probably over a third, right?
I have faith in you. I have faith in your survival.
What would a third
abilities.
be? If it was exactly a third, that'd be what?
78.
Yeah.
I feel like 78 is a pretty average.
I think medical science will have advanced to that like significantly by the time I'm there, but I think it'll be too late for me.
Too late for
I
you
think
to do what?
To live forever. I think we're 1 to 2 generations away from death being optional. So, outside of like horrific accidents and murder and stuff, but like
we did just talk about that 2 weeks ago. Landon already went on his rant about how close we are to living forever.
We're so close. We're so close.
I only know that because I edited the episode this morning.
Is that 199?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, my birthday. Invited all my friends over for a cookout. Nobody showed up.
That's not true.
I was just kidding. No, I just had my parents over. Just my parents came over. So.
Nice. And just chilled?
Yeah, we cooked burgers.
Chilled.
Which was interesting.
Cooked burgers, cooked other things.
Well, like cooked burgers. So which normally wouldn't be a problem, but so like I think I've talked about on the show how my parents only eat meat for the most part. My mom is like strict on it. Like she eats meat and eggs and that's it. Mm-hmm. And mostly just like steak and hamburger. My dad will have an actual like bun and like condiments. But my mom just wanted like a patty. Or she wanted like several because that's all she eats.
No cheese.
No cheese. But she also does not want the meat seasoned. She just wants it cooked up hamburger meat without any kind of salt,
is that
pepper,
because she likes the taste of like just meat?
I think she thinks the seasoning's bad for her. I don't quite know. There's something in it that says
most seasoning is like 0 calories.
Well, no, it's like she says it's like something about like the salt makes her feel gross or something, or like different seasonings make her feel sick. So.
Oh, interesting.
Proceed.
Yeah.
No comment.
It's interesting. So I make up all the patties. I season 4 of them because me and my dad were each gonna have 2, and I don't season the other 4 because I'm like my mom will eat probably 2 or 3, and I won't have the leftover one.
Yeah.
So I throw them all on the grill, and I forget where I threw them down at. As I'm like, I flipped them over, and I'm like, I don't know which ones are which now. Like,
it
wait
sounds
a minute.
Like something from a Simpsons episode.
No. This is when Landon gets to recreate the scene from Better Call Saul.
Oh no!
With the battery.
The battery, yeah.
One of the greatest scenes of all time.
Television. Yeah.
Of television.
For someone who is not educated in this area of Better Call Saul, can you like catch us up to speed?
There's just a great. I don't want to spoil the scene because it's actually
good.
It's a really good scene. But basically, someone catches someone else. Not in the act of something, but they basically trick someone into realizing that they are wrong, and it involves battery.
Yeah, it's probably like like you said, it's probably one of the best scenes in television. Like definitely top 10. It's like gut wrenching, satisfying, but also like really sad at the same time. Like,
yeah.
Which really describes just Better Call Saul.
Just like when Landon force-fed his mother a hamburger last night that had seasoning in it. When he told her there was no seasoning.
Well, my mom would play tricks like that when I was a kid. She would like cook up cookies and be like, yeah, like she was like on this health kick, like coconut oil was like so super great for you. So she would use coconut oil instead of butter in chocolate chip cookies. And she would give me the chocolate chip cookies and be like, yeah, I made them with butter. And I try them and be like, oh, they taste fine. She's like, actually there's coconut oil in them and you couldn't tell the difference. Like, so there, we're going to use coconut oil for everything now. Like,
were you like, I had to believe you.
But she would she would flip it the other way and be like, oh yeah, they have coconut oil. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, I could kind of taste it. And she'd be like, I lied. It's actually just had butter in it. Like, so you don't really like,
So
if you could see my face right now, it would say 1,000 words, but I don't have any to share right now.
No comment.
I was probably, I want to say I was like 10 years old probably when this happened. So
okay, but you're still a liar at 10 years old. So
I think when I was 10 years old, I was beating Super Mario Galaxy for the first time.
I was getting gaslit by my mom.
Involving cooking oils.
Yeah, involving cooking oils that I didn't care about. Like, so like. So I didn't do that. But I had like this moment of being like, I can't believe like this is a situation on a barbecue. Like no one else is having to deal with the situation on the grill where they're like, which patties have seasoning on them? Because like typically every I was able to figure it out because I put a bunch of Montreal steak seasoning on some of them, and you can kind of see that. Like I mixed a bunch of seasoning in with the patties and then put some Montreal on top, so I was able to kind of like, excuse me,
eventually
figure it
tell.
out. Yep, I was able to figure it out. So I had dinner with my parents. They gave me some gifts. I got some candles. Got a bunch of candles from them.
You got a bunch of candles for
yeah, which I'm stoked. I love candles. Everybody knows, big candle guy.
Dude, I love candles.
When I think Landon,
candle guy.
I think candles.
It's been a newer thing, probably like past 2 years.
Candles,
really
but,
picked up candles.
Yeah.
And they got me like some mitts for my barbecue, like cooking mitts, like you can grab stuff. And then they got me like this little like tray thing that like you could throw like chopped vegetables or potatoes in to put on the grill so they don't fall like between the cracks. So you could like cook up like a little like I don't know, vegetable mix or something. I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we've all entered the era of practical gifts. You know?
Yeah.
I've been there. My family, it's been for a while.
Gotcha.
I got like, I feel like I got like textbooks at one point for like a birthday present when I was still a teenager, I think. So,
Oof.
I like practical gifts now, but I didn't really love them when I was a kid. But
Yeah.
Well, no kid
I love them
think
now.
loves practical gifts, but I mean, yeah, once you
well, my mom did this thing where she would buy gifts years in advance. I'm not kidding. She would buy stuff years in advance, be like, oh, they'll probably like this then. And then be like, yeah, I've had this for 3 years. And be like, well, like, you know, the pirate phase ended like, 2 years ago. So now like.
I forgot you were a pirate.
So is this
Most people do.
childhood trauma episode about Landon and his mom?
No, we can get away from it.
Yeah, let's
I'm just
move on
feeling
to the next
reflective.
topic.
I'm just feeling reflective on like my life. Like not only
Like at 26, how do you feel?
Yeah, but you're
feel-
bringing the vibes down.
No, well, we can't always have good vibes on the podcast.
I feel like it's a good vibe. I'm just being reflective. I'm being reflective on my life.
Sometimes reflective vibes are happy and sad.
And so I also like, so not only I'm 26,
Okay.
I'm now to mid to late 20s. I'm almost not a young adult anymore. I probably don't even, am I even a young adult, or am I just an adult at this point? When do you stop being a young adult?
We've literally
Is it
called you
30?
an old man for years.
I know, but like it was a joke, right?
I don't know. I
I don't
feel
think
like there's no blanket, I would say, criteria for that. I think it is dependent on the person. I think culturally, young adult people consider probably like maybe 25 and younger, maybe. But I mean,
so you're not a young adult anymore.
people could be talking about
But
like,
you're not in your 30s.
I would say people could be talking about someone 29 or 30 or something, probably as a young adult. But I don't feel like a young adult. So I don't know.
I don't feel like one. Like my worries and problems, I feel like are like mostly like adult problems. Like, but I'm also reflecting. I've been reflecting a lot because not only am I getting older, but then I had this moment where like I think my house is now the place that I've lived the longest as an adult.
That's crazy.
Like, because I had the apartment in the Tri-Cities where I was there for a year, and then my apartment in Spokane I was there for 2 years, and now I've been at my house for over 2 years now. So I believe if it hasn't hit now, it's going to be here imminently. So it's weird to think that like it still feels like I just moved here, but like it's been the longest place I've been at since I've been an adult.
How does the stability feel? Because that's one thing I haven't had much. Well, since I got married, really, just because of constant moving and stuff. Like I'll have to be in this house for, I think,
No, you get
a year and a half. No, 2 years, and then it'll be the place I've been the longest. But I haven't lived anywhere longer than 2 years.
Okay.
In a really long time.
It's been I think I like it. Like both at my apartments, the one in the Tri-Cities was extremely depressing. Like the setup of it, like there was absolutely no decorations, nothing on the walls, no kind of personality to it.
You know the saying like about like something being a house, but it then like becoming a home.
That's what I feel like is happening now.
It's like the first apartment you're talking about wasn't even a house, right? It was
no. It was an apartment that I literally just slept in and played video games. I think in the entire year I was there, you guys visited like once, I think, and then like I think my parents came down one time and my grandparents were with them once. So like, and then I had one friend that came in twice, like that visited twice from like that I met in the Tri-Cities. So like I only had like people, like I was there for almost an entire year, and like only like 4 sets of people entered the place outside of me the entire time I was there.
Oh my god!
So like, so it was like this, like extremely. There wasn't much lighting
Isolating.
either. So it was mostly dark. It was like I mean, my days were essentially like I would wake up, go to work, and it was the first year like being a professional that like it was slower down there. So I had like way more free time than I'd ever had like in my past couple years, but I had like nothing to do. I remember I literally played Red Dead Redemption 2 for like 14 hours one day, and I was like done with the game. I fished and hunted for 14 hours straight. Like, there was bad lighting, so like it was always dark and grim. Like,
lighting is one of the most important things in a house. Like, no joke.
Yeah.
It can turn like a depressing hellscape into something that just feels comfortable and inviting and, you know, just soothing.
Yeah. So I left there.
I don't even think about these kind of stuff.
I didn't used to. I just was like, oh, I'm sad, and like this place sucks because like everything else in my life was terrible at the time.
With the one light like swinging in his dining room with like no table underneath it.
Yeah. I didn't have a table. Excuse me. I ate on the little probably 1.5 by 1.5 like what would it be called? It's like a
cardboard box. That's what they're called.
I actually ate on a cardboard box for a couple weeks, I think. But I ate. It was something your dad gave me. It was like a little square brown table. It was literally like
an end table. Yeah,
an end table. And I ate every meal, I believe, on that in front of my TV for a year. I'm pretty sure that I ate at home. Yeah, it was bad.
Anyone else tearing up?
Who was it earlier that said this was not depressing?
I don't.
Is that
I'm
Will
just
that said that?
I'm being reflective. I'm reflective.
I take back my statement.
I
didn't know Landon was going to start talking about the Tri-Cities.
Well, no. So I went from that
Tri-City.
So I went from that, and then I moved back to Spokane, and I was way happier. But then I had another apartment, and this apartment was older. It wasn't like probably like as nice of an apartment, but it was more. It felt more homey. Like it had more. I put up a couple things in the walls. I had more people over, had better lighting, this and that. The neighbors were terrible though. And like I still had this like sense that I'm like, I don't want to be here for like that long. You know, there's like the sense of like this doesn't feel like a permanent place. And I think that probably was like due to somewhat of like the terrible neighbors around me where I'm like, I don't want to be here. Like the last 4 months I hated like living there so much. Like I like dreaded like leaving because I didn't like want to interact with the people that like lived below me. And then I moved here, and it probably didn't even start happening for like probably the first year, but then like slowly like I've gotten stuff on the walls. Like I don't know, I feel like this place, I feel like, at least I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the place has like a decent amount of personality to it. Like I'm constantly I feel like I'm improving it, and I actually feel like it's like a home. And like that's like the first time I've felt that way in like probably ever, if that makes like, I mean, like you have like your plate, like, you know, my childhood home felt like my home, but like my parents sold that house. They sold that house, I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I think they sold that house shortly after I'd moved back from the Tri-Cities. So like I came back like essentially, and soon after that, like didn't have like, it kind of felt like I was like, oh, I don't have a home anymore. Cause like then they just had this house that I had no memories in. So then it felt like I was just like aimlessly floating around trying to find like my own identity. And now I feel like I found it like with this, like this is my home now. So
do you see yourself like kind of staying here for a while, or?
I think at least, I've been here 2 years, at least 3 more. 3 more would be my assumption. Like, I mean, things can change, you know what I mean? If I move somewhere, but like, I mean, just with the interest rate alone, like, I feel like I'm like kind of trapped here.
Yeah.
So,
but you mean trapped in a good way, right? Like,
yeah, in a good way. It's like, it's just like, it wouldn't make any sense for me. Like, if I was to keep living in Spokane, it would make absolutely no sense to move anywhere. Like,
yeah.
The only thing I don't like about this house, I guess there's a few things you don't like. I mean, I wish the lighting was a little bit better, and I messed up by painting the walls a little too dark. I wasn't thinking in the moment. I like the color a lot, but like it is a dark gray, which doesn't help with the lighting.
Light probably doesn't bounce off it very well.
I wish the garage was attached. I wish I had an attached garage, and I wish the basement was finished just for extra space. Not that I really need it now, but it'd be kind of nice to have a game room. But I don't like, everything's so old. Like it's such an old build, like that it's like the amount of effort to finish the basement seems like it would almost not be worth it. Like just because the effort to go into it. But
you got a nice lawn though.
I do. I feel like my lawn's coming together. It's for the front lawn, a lot of weeds because for various reasons I'm not going to talk about. But couple, you know, I'll just say a couple of the neighbors, which I like my neighbors. My neighbor Jace next door, great guy. But some of the neighbors, him and the people across the street, thought it'd be cool to like plant clover.
You name dropped him?
Yeah, because he's a great guy. I told him it was fine that he planted clover, but like these people are planting clover in the yards, and then you don't have to plant clover. We want grass. We have grass in our yards. Now everybody in the neighborhood has clover in their yards, so it's like, so there's just a clover epidemic. So,
I can tell you haven't thought about this at all.
Nope.
Clearly
Kind of
not.
a sneak peek into Landon's neighborhood drama.
Yeah, neighborhood drama. The Clover epidemic.
Neighborhood drama and childhood trauma.
That sounds like a movie. What is it? Sounds like Cloverfield Lane or whatever.
Yeah,
But instead of
Ten
some giant
Cloverfield
monster,
epidemic.
it's just
Cloverfield
like,
lawn. Like,
A giant Cloverfield or a giant weed. Yeah.
but I guess
It's
my
some
whole
rumor
point,
weed
like,
stuff, Dave.
I guess my point being is that like I'm like really happy now, and it didn't feel like it's like reflecting. I'm like, oh wow, like it actually kind of like is coming together. Like my life, like it's like I don't really like my birthdays generally. I'm not like a huge birthday person, but like I was thinking about it, I'm like, oh wow, like I actually have made a lot of strides, and like I have a pretty good life now, and I'm like pretty happy and content with everything. So
Nice. I'm
and if
happy.
that's not the greatest
I'm
birthday
glad to
gift
hear that.
you could receive, then I don't know what is, guys. Jeez.
I was gonna say happy birthday, and I
a Ferrari.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we should be done with this conversation.
Yeah, your happiness is depressing, Will. So
Yeah. Well, good for you, dude. Good for you is all I gotta say.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm
feel like I
doing
said-
well. Okay.
I feel like I said like too many sad things. I couldn't end it like being like, I couldn't like leave at the part where like, hey, but I'm really happy now. It's like I can't just like,
it's like one of those movies where the entire like first 4/5 of the movie, the first 4/5 of the movie are extremely depressing. And that
That's like
ends on a
almost
happy note,
halfway
you
through
know?
the movie, right? Or no, just past halfway through the movie.
yeah, just over,
Yeah.
a little over halfway.
You know, I'd like to say 1/3, but who really knows?
yeah, who really knows? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
We can make those
congratulations,
jokes 'cause
Landon, on
Someone's not here.
on another year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
hopefully you're even happier next year.
What if he's like? What if it all goes south from here?
Then we can listen to this podcast and have a good laugh.
Will's like,
As
I shouldn't
crying.
have been so depressed.
Landon's life sucks.
Hey, I do not gain
When my hip
pleasure out of
surgery
other
goes,
people's misery. I do-
fully wrong in like 20
can't
days. or
walk
whatever.
again.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I don't want that. I don't want that on the record.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, switching topics. Colby,
Yes.
you have a story for us.
I do. I have a very interesting.
Hey,
date
we'll be the
story.
judge of that.
Yeah, that's kind of our call, not yours. So
Okay. Well, now I'm nervous to be honest, but
you've hyped this up. I want to clarify. Like you've hyped this up.
But
Like you were talking to me about this on Monday.
I would like to
it
say
was crazy.
Colby has done the biggest turnaround in his storytelling in the last couple of years. Because I mean, I think on the show, like it was well known that a Colby story was like a snoozer.
God.
Dude,
Like a dud, man. Like it's like oh man, like the whole time you're like, is the payoff going to be worth it? And like then the story just ends, and you're like, what? Like,
So like my hopes are
Colby, yeah.
high because Colby his storytelling game has really elevated over the last few years. So no pressure.
Thank you. You know what? I appreciate that. I was actually thinking about that last night in the shower because I was prepping myself. I knew that this was going to be brought up today, and I was just thinking about all of the times where I would want to tell a story and I would just get ridiculed for it, and to the point where I just wasn't telling stories anymore. And then you guys were like, "Why don't you tell us anything anymore?" And it's like, well, because I don't want to get ridiculed. So I'm glad that I just got better. And now
Yeah, we are
everybody-
too.
hey, you put in the work, man. You put in the work.
Yes.
Now we can
Uh,
ridicule
yeah.
you for other things. So
Yeah.
But sometimes people can relapse.
yeah,
Sometimes
I feel like you guys want this to be a bad story.
it would make it kind of
drive
funnier.
the narrative. I just think it drives the narrative.
I drive.
We'll get to that later.
So I did. So I went on a date on Sunday. So I matched with this girl, and we kind of have like a good quick banter going. Exchange, numbers. We set up a date for Saturday, and it gets postponed. She's like,
Oh,
"Yeah, we were supposed to meet out in Coeur d'Alene at like 8 p.m. or something like that, which was already late. But that was the plan because it was already got like pushed back. And yeah, she texted me about like 7 and was like, "Hey, like I'm really sorry. Is there any way we could do tomorrow?" And it's like, as a guy, you read that message and you're like, well, like she says she wants to postpone. That's just not going to happen, right? You kind of chalk it up as a loss, but you still
Yeah.
have to get into it because you can't just admit defeat.
you can't freak out and start screaming. You can't be a lunatic. You got to be like, all right,
Yeah,
let's try to
no,
do
you
it
just-
tomorrow.
you keep your composure, but you hope for the best and expect the worst, right?
Oh yeah.
So we reschedule. So now the new plan is Sunday, 4 p.m. We meet in Coeur d'Alene. And we do. So I meet her. We meet downtown. We walk to the boardwalk. And on the boardwalk is like a little bar. It's right on the water. Outdoor patio seating, like live music. It was a really cool place. We get a drink and we're just talking, just kind of getting to know each other. And like 30 minutes into the date, she tells me, what she does for a living and what that is. She's a teacher. So then
did you ask her how she felt about? Did you ask her how she felt about her pay?
Landon, be careful. we did talk about pay for a little bit. Unlike you, we think she's underpaid.
I think all teachers are underpaid. Max them out.
Yep, we believe you. We believe you every time you say it. So, so following that statement, she was like, and actually, I just signed a 9-month lease. I'm going to go teach in LA this fall. Like, so now I know that the girl I'm on a date with right now is going to move to LA. I can presume sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. So whatever, like I kind of just, nothing to get hung up on because it's like 30 minutes into a first date. So we just breeze by that. We're still talking. And I meant, now we're talking about what I do for work and I travel and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be in LA, in a few weeks. And she's like, oh, I'll be down there by then. Like, definitely come visit me. But that statement doesn't really mean anything because it's like so early into this meeting, right? That's just something you say. So whatever, we continue. About an hour and a half goes by at this little place. We're finished our drinks. And I'm like, let's go get some food. So we walk to a different place where we're sitting out back on a different patio and we're eating food. And like this like deranged, like old friend of hers comes up and is like hooting and hollering on the back patio, like getting everybody's attention. And she's like, oh my God, like, I don't know, like just trying to, I don't think she was like trying to cause trouble. I think she was just a loud, eccentric person, okay, to put it nicely.
The friend or the girl you're on the date with?
No, the friend.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the girl you're on the date with. I was like, oh.
No, that's my apologies. So I guess to clear up confusion, the girl that I went on the date with, her name was McKenna. Okay, so no, so not McKenna. She's like kind of just as confused as I am, and it was just like a really uncomfortable interaction because she was our age, right? I think she was like 22, and she was there with her husband, who, if I had to guess, was 55, 60.
What? No.
And so I'm like,
classic.
Like she's like introducing, like I'm just meeting these people, right? I like am shaking hands, and she's like, "This is I forgot her name. So she's like, nice to meet you. This is my husband," and I'm like McKenna and I just dart each other a look, like because as far as I'm concerned, like they know each other and they're like really good friends. You know what I mean? Like I don't really know their relationship, so I'm like kind of like taken back by that. Whatever, they go and they sit inside, so we're left alone on the patio, and we're just kind of talking about that, right? And I'm like, what's the deal with that? She's like, I literally have no idea. Like, I really haven't seen her since high school. That is like a total shock to me. So whatever. I mean, like that just kind of is like a weird thing that happened. And so we just continue on the date. We're just talking about different stuff, traveling, just like kind of normal conversation. And her friend leaves again and just decide like this time, like she's like leaving like tipsy, drunk. And so then she just keeps saying like crazy things to us, and she's like leaning in close to the table, and sounds like this is like exactly what it is chalked up to be. Like McKenna's like confused. She's like, "Do you actually married to him?" And she's like, "Well, we're engaged. We just got engaged 2 days ago." Just like a crazy like all of these details I don't need to know. She was like I said, she didn't have a filter. So like they leave, and I'm like this can't be real, right? Like how come that just happened right now? Like why? So whatever. So we're sitting and it's like 7:30, and a key reason why I wanted to go out at 4 and not later was because it's a Sunday night. I have a 5 a.m. flight Monday morning to Colorado Springs for work. So I have my alarm set on my phone for 2:45 in the morning. So it's like 7:30 Sunday evening, and she goes, well, I know you have to get up early in the morning, so definitely don't feel obligated, but a family friend of ours is opening a wine bar. It's like 2 blocks from here. It's like an exclusive, like private opening. So we'll get in and it won't be any problem. Like a free glass of wine, and it should be a good time. The only downside is that I think my family's going to be there.
But Colby, she had you at free glass of wine. I know you. I know you're like free alcohol. You're
so I'm like sitting there like across from her, going like, well, the logical thing is to go home. It's going to take me like an hour to get home. And to get home, finish packing my bag, and try and get enough sleep for my week. But I'm also thinking if I don't go, I will probably, at least maybe not always, but for a while I will be thinking about what would have happened, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, for the plot, yeah, I'm gonna do it. So I'm like, yeah,
hell yeah,
like, let's go. And she was like, wait, really? Like my family's gonna be there? And I was like, yeah. I was like, oh well, like let's just go. It should be fun.
With his eyes glazed over, I don't care. Like,
so we walk over,
Colby.
and like I said, it's a private event. So her dad walks out and gets us. All right. So we walk in with him, and I didn't know it was her dad either until he just sits down at the table with us. And so now I'm at a table with her dad, her mom, her older sister, and her brother-in-law. Again. So it's kind of just like a triple date.
And clarification, this is your first date with her, like first time you're meeting her, right?
Yeah, like and we've probably sent like no more than 20 text messages each. Like this is this is a fresh interaction with a person.
These are so good. I live for these kind of interactions.
So her brother-in-law gets us drink. He gets us a glass of wine, and then we're just conversing. We're just having a good time. Like it was like oddly welcoming, and I was a little uncomfortable, of course, but like it wasn't so uncomfortable that I wanted to leave. Like part of me was just like, yeah, write it out. Like this is awesome, right? Even though it was like extremely weird. But no,
I'm really proud of you.
Nice.
Can I interject for just half a second?
Yes.
I'm really proud of you because I feel like Colby from a couple years ago absolutely would not have done this because like you were like you were like back then like the king of like I don't want anything uncomfortable. I don't want anything weird happening to me. Like I'm gonna shut down if like weird things are happening around me. So
That's actually big facts.
Yeah.
So,
I now
proud.
like seek out. I like seek out strange adventurous interactions. I feel like so that's called character development.
Colby's in Act 2.
Character development, mental illness,
Indistinguishable at times.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
So we're just hanging out. We're just having a good time. And they're wrapping up and they're like, hey, we're going to go get a bite to eat at this place called Bartonnet. Why don't you guys come with us? And they're all like, yeah, like you should go. And we're like, oh, well, we just ate. And her dad was like, oh, we'll just come by and get a drink. We can continue to visit. And I'm like, at this point, though, I'm like, no, come on. Like, this isn't my call because this is her family, I guess. Like, I guess I could eject at any time. But also, I don't know. I'm kind of waiting on her to make the right decision, which is like, let's go do our own thing. And she does. Her brother-in-law was like, no, like, you guys should go do your own thing. That's what I would want to do if you guys were on a date. And then now, like, they're like, her entire family is just right in front of us talking about how the fact that like we're on a date right now, which was like extremely weird. That was probably the most uncomfortable part of the whole interaction was like having to listen to them talk about us being on a third date, even though we're like talking about us on a first date, even though we're right there. So we were like, okay, yeah, you guys go have fun. We're going to do our own thing. So we all leave at the same time. And then they bring out like their family dog, which was just chilling. And so now I'm like meeting the dog. And the dog's like jumping up on me, and they're all
like, "Oh, the dog loves you."
Yes. They're like, "Oh, the dog loves you." I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of getting uncomfortable." so whatever. It's now like 9:00 at night. I should absolutely already be in bed, and we're walking, and she's like, "Well, like, what do you want to do? Like, I know you need to get up early in the morning, but I'm just gonna leave it up to you. Like, if you want to go somewhere else, let's go." And I was like, okay. So I chose. We just go to this other place. Because the night before she wanted to meet at this bar called the Beacon, and it was like a block away.
Is this all still in Coeur d'Alene then?
Yeah. All of this happened in like a half-mile radius.
Oh,
so
that's funny.
So we do. We walk over to the Beacon and we sit down and, she buys drinks and then we just continue to talk. And it's like good conversation. It's like funny. It's banterous. We're like making fun of each other. We're like making jokes about other things. We have like, good chemistry. Just it's good conversation. And eventually her phone rings and like she doesn't excuse herself from the table, but she's like, I really need to answer this. I'm so sorry. And I was like, no worries. So she answers it. It lasts like 10 seconds. She puts her phone down and goes, hey, so my friend Noah is on a date right now and he's not really like feeling the girl that he's on a date with. So I told him that he could come here so he doesn't have to deal with her alone. And I was like, What? But also, there's no use in there's no point in making like a fuss about it because he's on his way.
You already met her family too. Like, what are you going to draw the line? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It sounds like it just keeps going and going and going and going.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. So he shows up alone. There's no girl. And then McKenna's like, I'm going to run to the restroom. I'll be right back. So it's just me and this dude I've never met before. And so I introduce myself and he's like, oh, hey, I'm Noah. How do you know McKenna? I'm like, well, this is our first date. And he's like, oh, no way, really? And I was like, yeah. I was like, but I already met her family. So like, this isn't too weird. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah. I was like, anyway, aren't you supposed to be on a date? Where's the girl? And he's like, oh, I wouldn't call it a date. Like, I don't know if like I'm super into her. And I was like, okay, where is she? Like, and he's like, oh, yeah, she told me she was going to get off work at 9. And she just hasn't texted me yet. And it's like 10:30 at night. And I'm like, what do you?
Yeah, she's not that into him either. Like.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, you're getting blown off. And he's like, oh, well, I don't want to cancel because I don't want to hurt her feelings. I was like, you're getting stood up right now.
Yeah, you already got canceled, bro. 11 o'clock. Wow, she's really working late. Like,
man,
dude, poor Noah. I just couldn't get the hint.
No, Noah sounds like somebody. Like, I feel like.
So McKenna comes back from the restroom and she's like, hey, where's the girl? And he's like, oh yeah, like, she's just, I'm not sure. Maybe she's still working. And now her and I are both like, bro, you're getting stood up. Like right now, you don't have to worry about hurting her feelings. She's not coming. Like you can cancel and you can go home. And he's like, no, I had a pretty bad day. So, I want to drink. Let's drink. And like McKenna and I
he couldn't get the hint that you guys didn't want to be around him either.
So McKenna and I haven't had a drink in like an hour because we were wrapping up. It was late. I got there at 4. It's now like 10:30 at night. That's a long date.
That's such a long any date. Like not even just like for a first.
Especially the first one. And so we hadn't had a drink in a while, and so he's like just drinking, and we're just like there. Because I was under the impression I was going to go home any minute, and now there's just 3 of us for some reason, not 4, which was kind of what I was led to believe, which was somehow better than just 3 of us. But anyway, so also to be noted at this time, there's like this like really drunk dude circling the bar, and I mean he's hammered, and it's a Sunday night, and he's got his friends, but he keeps going group to group, and he's introducing himself, and he's being loud and obnoxious.
I hate
and so he
finally
makes his way to us, and he's introduces himself, and this is Tony. Okay,
Tony.
So we're like, hey, whatever he's saying, we're like, that's great, man. And then we just go back and talk to talk amongst ourselves. So like he's just kind of like still lingering in the background. It's like now 11:30. I'm stone cold sober. She's sober. Noah's not. And she's like, well, like, do you want to walk across the street and we can go play darts at this bar called The Moose? And I was like, I like look at my watch. It's 11:30 at night. It's going to take me an hour to get home. I'm supposed to be up in 3 hours. And she was like, kind of made a comment to me. She was like, well, like, what do you think? If you were to go home right now, what would you do for 2 hours? Like, do you think you'd actually get sleep? Or like, what do you think you'd do? And I just went, I'd probably do a lot of thinking, probably some self-reflection on tonight. and she just laughed and was like, yeah, so like, did you want to go? And I was like,
okay.
I was like, yeah. Yeah. I was like, yeah, let's just go play darts. So we do. We walk across
Did you tell her you were really good at darts, especially when you were stone cold sober?
No, I did not hype myself up for darts. And thank God, because I lost both games. Because there was 3 of us, remember?
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah. No,
yeah. So anyway, darts was a lot of fun, but still, I don't know how I keep ending up in the situation where I go out with a girl and then somehow I end up in a group of
And then
people
it's
playing
not a
darts.
date.
Yeah, it's just not a date anymore. Like,
I don't know. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe they're like, I don't want to be with him alone. Like, let me meet up with you. Like,
Well, you are such a threatening individual.
yeah, look at me. So,
yeah, we all are.
so whatever. We're playing darts. It's cool. It's a good time. We play for like 30 minutes. And as we're wrapping up, like Tony's now in this bar, and we have to walk
The
by
return
him.
of Tony.
The return of Tony. So we walk by him, and Noah's like, "Hey, what's up, Tony?" And he just freaks out. He's like, "Who are you? How do you know my name?" like we're like, "Oh my god, he's that drunk." I'm like, "You met us 30 minutes ago." Like, what do you mean? He's like, "I've never seen you guys before in my life." And we're like, bro. And also, Tony doesn't look that young. Okay, Tony doesn't look 40, but he doesn't look 23. So he's somewhere in between. And he's like freaking out. He's like, "I don't know who you guys are, how you know my name, how you got here." I'm like, "Dude, you're asking too many questions. Like, just say hi, right?"
I didn't know even acknowledge Tony's presence. That's what I want.
I don't know, but that was a big mistake because you'll find out later.
Well, it sounds like it was Noah that acknowledged him, right? Not Colby.
Well, that's what I said. I said, why did Noah do it?
okay.
I'm like, why would he?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like Noah wasn't great at catching hints, so maybe this was one of those.
And I will say this: Noah actually really funny, like a really funny person to hang around.
Would
great
you
guy.
stand up, Noah?
Maybe, but he was fun to hang out with and be around. I thought he was really funny. Probably.
Are you friend zoning Noah? Like,
I just don't think it was appropriate for him to be there on our first date. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah, another time, maybe I hang out with Noah, but not tonight, right? If I had it my way. So whatever, right? So he's like, Tony's freaking out, and he's like, "I've never seen you before in my life," and he points at Noah, and then he looks at McKenna, the girl that I'm on a date with, and goes, "And I would have remembered you. You are gorgeous." And I was like, "Uh-oh."
Tony's got moves.
And so she's like, "No, like, we met, bro." And he's like, "No, we didn't. Like, I promise I would have remembered you." And she was like, "What's my name?" And he's like, "I don't know. We've never met." And she goes, "Yes. Can you guess my name?" And he goes, "I don't know, but I'm going to call you Honey Bunches." And I was like, "We're done."
Yeah.
So I'm like the three of us, we just keep walking. And we should have just left, okay? But keep in mind now, there's three of us, so it's kind of like a majority rules thing. So if I had it my way, we would have left.
You keep saying that, so did things not happen your way?
So we go and we sit at a table at the bar. Once again, we're still all just drinking water because I've got an hour drive home. And also, I'm not really interested in drinking at like 12:30 in the morning on a Sunday. So,
Or Monday at this point. It's a Monday, actually.
That's a Monday. I have to be up in 2 hours. Whatever. So we're sitting there and we're conversing.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were up.
And this group of girls is they sit at the table next to us, and they are loud and obnoxious. And one of them is like scanning the room, and we lock eyes. And she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and neither of us look away for like 5 seconds. To the point where I started to panic, and I was like, do I know her? Like, should I know her? And then she looks at McKenna, who is sitting right next to me, and just like a loud, obnoxious drunk girl screams, "Oh my God, you are so beautiful!" And like McKenna's like so uncomfortable. She's like, "Oh, like, thank you. You're so pretty too." And this girl takes that as an invitation to sit at our table. So she ditches her friend. And she sits with us, and I'm like, "Can you people please leave us alone?"
Dude, the posse is growing. It's growing.
Noah's got a girl now, though.
Yeah.
And and then she like sits down and she's talking to us, and she's like, "Yeah, my daughter's at home." I'm like, "I don't care where your daughter is."
Oh my God, dude.
And she's like, and then she starts talking. She's like asking people where they're from, and like I was like, "Well, I'm gonna have fun with this." So I tell her I'm from Denver, and she's like, "Oh, like, yeah." And then like when I say that, Noah and McKenna like look at me like, what is, you know what I mean? And I just kind of gave them like the like just go with it look. So then we're all just like creating like backstories and like a different narrative, just trying to like have fun with it. And she's like, we're just like clearly like messing with her, and like she's not getting it because she's so drunk.
She's drunk. You're
no. Don't finish that sentence. So, whatever. Like, but she's not getting the hint. So McKenna finally is like, you know, she points to Tony, who's sitting at the bar, and she goes, "Hey, you know, I bet if you go up to him and ask for a drink, all you have to do is flirt with him. He'll buy it for you." And this girl, who I don't remember her name, for the sake of the story, we're going to call her Emily. Emily looks over at Tony, and like the look on her face is just pure disgust. And she was like, "Oh my God, I hate him. I hate him so much. That's the good dude my friends warned me about." And like, well, the three of us are looking at each other like, "Oh my God, like, what? Who is Tony? What has he done?" And so, perfect timing, or like the worst timing possible. It really just depends on how you look at it. Tony has regained enough consciousness to remember us. And at that exact moment that she's talking about how much she hates him, he turns, looks at us, gets a big smile on his face. We're at a 4-person table. He pulls up a 5th stool and sits down right next to me. and he's like, "Hey, what's up, everybody?" And I'm like, "You have got to be kidding me." So immediately, this Emily girl is like, she's like, "F you, I hate you, you're a POS, like all my friends hate you." And he's like defensive, and he's super drunk, so he's like angry, and he's like, "No, F you, who are you?" Like, and so, like this is all, and they're like both being really loud. And keep in mind, the bar's not packed because it's Monday morning at like 1 a.m. And so I like stand up and I put my hands on the table and I'm like, no, if you guys are going to beef, you can go do that somewhere else. If you're going to sit at our table, you have to act like an adult. So Emily gets up and she just leaves. Okay.
She's like, "I'm not an adult tonight."
Yeah. Hoping Tony would do the same. He just now sees that he doesn't need that 5th stool because the 4th one's open. So he's just in on the table now. And we're like, oh my God. Where he proceeded to throw himself at this girl I'm on a date with for the next like 45 minutes to an hour. I mean, like he was so drunk that he was like getting like more and more like forward and like kind of graphic with some of his advances. But he just kept saying like he sees us sitting together and he's like, "Wait a minute, are you guys dating?" And like, I can see where this is going. I see where his thought process is. So I look at McKenna looks at me, and I go, "Yes." Okay. Which is not true. This is a first date. But I'm like, "Yes," like I'm trying to shut this down. And he's like, dang it. And he looks at her, he's like, "But I love her. I love her so much." And he's like, "Do you love her?" And I can see where this is going. So I look at her, she looks at me, and I go, "Yes." Which is not true. This is the first date. And he's like, "No, F you." And he like looks at her, he's like, "I love you." And then he looks at me and he's getting like really angry. He's like, "I hate you. I hate you so much." And we're like, "No." And like at this point, I don't even know how the nickname started, but then we just started calling him like Tony. Or no, his name is Tony, and we called him Tone and Tone. We just called him like different variations of like Tony. It was like really stupid, but like it just made the situation funnier when he's like screaming. He's like screaming at me.
You're like, "Tone, like, tone it down."
Yeah. And McKenna's like, "Tone. It's okay. There's other girls out there." It's like, and so he like sees us, and like she's kind of like, I think she's like uncomfortable with the whole situation. So she's like trying to make it look like we really are like dating, like we're like really close. And he's like looking at us, and he'd be like telling a story. He's like, "Oh yeah, I just fought some guy, you know, and I won. He did jujitsu, but I won, you know." He's like trying to like show off or something. He's like, "I'm the coolest person in Idaho." Like that's a direct quote, by the way. And then he would like randomly look over at us, and he'd like stand up and like look to see if like we were like touching it all, and he'd be like, "Are you guys still cupcaking over there?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Like I don't know what that means, but I'm like getting severely uncomfortable because he's very hostile when he says it. And this just goes on forever. And he's just going on rants. Like we're trying to get him uninterested in McKenna. So we're like just like trying to make her seem like super, like just like I don't know, just like have like poor qualities. And he just ends up like the night ends up with us listening to him go on like a 30-minute like hate speech rant covering like like a lot of different groups, which I'm not going to get into because I don't think it's appropriate. But like it was a lot.
Sounds like Idaho.
It was a lot to listen to, and like the entire time, like we just kept making eye contact, McKenna and I, and being like there's no way that this is real life. Like this is a joke. This can't be real.
It's just another day for Tony. Like
Tone.
It is. Yeah, for Tone. And so anyway, like, and we had known that this was like an unorthodox date ever since I met her parents, right? Because we talked about it as soon as I left. I was like, wow, I can't believe that happened. She's like, I can't believe that happened either. That is something I never thought I would do. And we're like, me neither, right? So we're both self-aware that this is insane, and it just keeps going. And so it's like 1:45. We wrap up at the bar. I think we're gonna go home. And Noah, who was fun at the bar, but now it's time for him to leave, goes, I just don't really want to go home yet. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's 2 a.m.
None of these people have like jobs like in the morning to go to like or do they work night shifts? Like what?
He works nights, I think, and McKenna's a teacher, so she's got the summer off.
Summer
Tony,
vacation.
I asked Tony what he did for a living. He what did he say? And I quote, I just pimp it out, I think.
Classic
Tone.
So yeah, that's Tone. That's Tone in a nutshell. So whatever. So he's like, yeah, I don't want to go home yet. And I'm like, dude, for real? And so McKenna just looks at me. She's like, well, do you want to walk the boardwalk? I'm like, oh yeah, the pitch black boardwalk at 2 a.m. What could go wrong? So sure, we do it. We would just walk on the boardwalk. Like Noah at this point, very clearly, if it wasn't clear for the last 4 hours, he's very clearly third wheeling as he's just like leading the way as like, we're like trailing, like just like still trying to talk.
I think this guy's a piece of crap. Like you can't pick up like a hint on like
he's like, my date was ruined, so I'll try to ruin someone else's date.
Yeah, like
he didn't even want it to be a date. He told me that.
He's only saying that because she like stood him up. Like he was trying to like say, he's like, oh, I wasn't really.
Yeah, he's saving face. He's totally saving face.
Yeah.
So whatever, we walk the boardwalk. It's like 2:15 in the morning. I'm like, I have to go home. I have to leave
because you're gonna miss your flight.
We're bordering that. So I'm like, we got to go. We say goodbye to Noah. McKenna and I park next to each other. So we walk back to our car. And the whole time we're walking back, she's like, don't tell your friends that about what happened tonight. And I was like, I said, are you kidding me?
I can't
everyone's
wait
gonna
to
know.
Tell my friends
I said, everyone's going to know as soon as they wake up. And she was like, no, come on. Like, you can't. And I was like, you're going to tell your friends? She was like, yeah, I am. But I'm going to do it because I'm embarrassed. Like, and you're going to do it because you're going to be like, this chick is crazy. And I'm like, I mean, it's not my fault the date went this way. I'm not sure it's yours, but it's definitely not mine. And so then she's like, well, at least leave my name out of it. And I was like, no, like, I'm not going to just pretend like it was some rando. Like, it has to be you. Like, you have to own this. And so she was like, okay, fine. And then we get back to the car and she was like, well, if you tell your friends. And I was like, no, when I tell my friends. And it's a mere hours before I tell them because everyone's going to be waking up soon for work. So we just say goodbye and go our separate ways. I like speed home. I was not done packing a bag, so I throw some stuff in a suitcase, mob to the airport. I get there with 15 minutes before we start boarding. And I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe I cut it that close.
So tired.
And I haven't slept and I'm exhausted and I'm starving. And it was just so whatever. And also in the back of my mind, she's moving to LA. But I think that's going to be in like a couple of weeks. So she texted me and was like, oh, what a great, like that was the craziest, funnest date I've ever had, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that was definitely the craziest, like probably the funnest date I've ever had as well. And she was like, yeah, the next date you have to, invite or like introduce me to your entire extended family just to one up me. And I was like, honestly, like that's kind of the only way to one up that date, I guess. And so I like
Hal, McKenna, Hal.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just trying to like gauge, when this is going to happen. And she's just like, oh yeah. By the way, like I have to go to LA like this week. Like I think I'm going to leave on Friday. And I'm like, oh, like, well, I'm in Colorado Springs, so we just like won't see each other. And then she texted me yesterday and was like, I bought a plane ticket. I leave tonight. And so like, I just might not ever see this girl again. Like she just lives in LA. Like she told me she wants to see me when I come visit, but which I feel like the possibilities of like a crazy date in LA are exponentially higher than a crazy date in Coeur
I hope
d'Alene.
it's like the most like boring date. It's like be funny if like you just like go out and like it's just quiet.
Yeah. We just get like street tacos and like watch the sunset.
Yeah.
Hey, look, it's the Hollywood sign.
Yeah. So now I'm just left with thoughts to ponder, and actually a really good story. I'm so glad I went and met her parents, because if I didn't, none of this ever happens, and I'm
You need to
probably
meet Tony.
Tony was insane.
Dude, Tone sounds like he might be a regular there. You guys could do like field trip to go meet Tone.
Oh, it'd be so
so
fun.
she texted
Tone
me.
on the podcast?
No, that's not what I said.
He's like, I've never met any of you before.
She texted me Monday night, and she was like, because there's like one main street in downtown Coeur d'Alene. She goes, I was driving down Main Street and I saw Tony. So he was like at the bars, and he was just like walking on the street. And she was like, and I rolled my window down and yelled at him. I yelled, "Hey, Tone," and he looked at me and he waved at me like he knew me his entire life. That's what she said. And I was like, he's such a character. Like, it was insane. So I think he is a regular. And I think if you guys want to ever meet him, I know exactly where to find him. He's like an NPC that just gives out side quests like at the same place every time. Like,
You guys could do like a Tony safari. Like, you're going to the beacon.
sightseeing?
And
There he
then,
is.
What was the other place called?
the Moose.
The Moose, and then you're just like scouting him out. You're like, there he is. Like, he's hitting on that
Yeah.
woman. Oh, now he's hitting on that woman. Oh, now he's hitting on that
Well,
woman.
it was,
Now
it
he's
was
throwing that
funny
chair
'cause,
at that man.
It was funny because like he was like throwing himself at McKenna for like an hour, and she's like clearly not into it. And then these two girls walk into the bar like right before we're about to leave, and he just like completely forgets that McKenna exists, and he like walks right up to them. And he's like, "Hey, me and my boys are taking shots. You with us?" And I was like, "Dude, you are such a like." And so, but I saw that as our opportunity, and so I was like, "Let's roll." And McKenna's like, "Irish goodbye." Yeah, she was like, "Irish goodbye." I was like, "Absolutely." Like, so then we just bounced. But yeah, it was insane.
Yeah.
So
Nuts.
The whole day, because Colby and I have been talking before we went on this date. I had a date earlier in the day, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go on my date, and I was gonna talk to Colby about it after his date. Like my date was earlier in the day, and Colby's was, mine was at 2, Colby's was at 4, and I figured we'd both be back home and would talk about our dates on PlayStation.
Yeah, I think I was there. I was on PlayStation.
Yeah.
I was like,
so
hey,
I went on my date, and it was like I had like a pretty. It will pale in comparison to anything that Colby has to say. I had like a pretty fun, interesting date with this girl. I texted Colby. I'm like, hey, it went really well. I had like a really good time. He's like, yeah, we'll have to talk about it tonight. And I'm like, cool. And then he's like, I'm heading out to Coeur d'Alene now. And I'm like, all right, perfect. I'm like, all right, we'll talk about it on PlayStation. And then I'm like playing with Will. We're like doing different stuff. And like Will's like, yeah, like, do you think Colby's gonna get it? I'm like, yeah, I think so. At this point, it was like I think it was like 8 or something. I'm like, yeah, I think he'll probably be on. Like,
He wasn't even halfway done with his date at 8 o'clock.
I kept checking my phone, and like I kept checking my phone, and like it still said like Colby like has like I'm looking at Colby's thing is like Colby has notifications. You can show if somebody has like notifications disabled. And I'm like, and then it's like 9 o'clock and still I'm like, what is? I'm like, and then it's like 10:30. And I think I got a text from Colby, and Colby's like, he's like, it's not like life isn't real or something from Colby. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I'm still in Coeur d'Alene. I'm like, what? And I was at like 10:30, and I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like,
that was before Noah showed up, man.
I know. Like, I can't remember when I went to bed, but when I went to bed, like you still had like do not disturb turn on.
It didn't matter when you went to bed because
you never did.
I never went to bed.
But yeah, like we Will and I played PlayStation for like a couple hours, I think, and then at a certain point, I'm like, yeah, I don't think Colby's getting on.
It was like at like 10 p.m. I think.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think it's happening.
Yeah, it's not happening.
And I was so tired. Like, I don't remember the last time I pulled an all-nighter because it's a stupid concept. Who does that? So
young people.
Yeah. Like, so I land in Colorado Springs at like 1 PM, and I'm starving. I'm exhausted. And the first thing I can think of is like, well, I've got like an hour drive to a different city. First, I need lunch. So I look up Jimmy John's and I just plug the first one in. And I'm so tired, I don't even look. Right. So I'm driving to Jimmy John's, and it says I'm like 4 minutes away. And I like am driving up to this military checkpoint. And I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. And this is when I realized I'm entering a military base. Like, I'm pretty sure it was an Air Force base.
Colorado Springs has a lot of Air Force stuff. The Air Force Academy is over there.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like pulling up, but I'm so far into this, like straightaway into where it would be like if I was so close to like the military checkpoint, if I just like backed out and flipped the UE or just left or something, it'd be like way more suspicious. So I had to like shamefully roll up, and I rolled my window down, and he's like,
And you're like, I'd like the turkey club, please.
he-
No mayo, extra mustard.
and he like looks at me, and he's like, he looks at me and is like, oh, he doesn't belong here. And immediately before like he can even say anything, I like give him my ID, and I was like, listen, I'm not from here. I'm lost. I know I'm not supposed to be here. I just need to like turn around. And he was like, where are you trying to go? And I had to look at this man in the eyes and say, Jimmy John's. And he goes, yeah, we got one on base. Hold on. So he goes and gets like the military police chief, who comes out, and he's got my ID, and he's like, all right, I'm walking in front of your car. Don't follow me until I tell you to. And then he walks in front of my car, and he like gives like a quick little like signal. But like, I don't know if that's the signal. Like, it's clearly something that they learned at some point, but I didn't go to boot camp, so I don't know. Their signs mean nothing to me, right? So then like, I'm just still sitting there, and the dude is walking, and then this other military guy who's like standing right next to my car goes, hey, he said follow him. I was like, hey man, like, it's cool. I'm gonna follow him.
Always got a gun down at a checkpoint.
So then he just gives me my ID and was like, get out of here. I was like, why are you being mean to me? Like, I'm just so tired. So I'm still like, I have long-term effects from Sunday's all-nighter, but I still have a great story. So who's the real winner?
They can't take that away from you.
Nope.
Colby, that was a good story.
I was nervous.
Yeah, that was a great story.
I was nervous. I do think it's probably the craziest date I've been on, and I've been on quite a few crazy ones. Like,
I'm going to keep it real with you. It's going to be the craziest date you'll probably ever be on. Like, I don't think anything.
I said that after this happened the first time, and the girl peed in front of me, right? And then this happened, and it lasted 12 hours, and I met her family, and I met the dog, and I met her best friend.
You did like 4 dates worth of time with her, like 4 to 5 dates, really, like in one go, like
that's nuts, dude. Hey, I'm glad you had a good time though.
It was a lot of fun. I regret none of it, actually. Like,
it sounds like life altering in some weird way. You know,
it's just crazy. He's never going to see her again.
Oh. No, I was gonna say, like, that's how he meets like the mother of his future children.
That's how I met your mother. Yeah.
Well, you'll probably be able to see her in LA. So
probably.
I'll be down there in a few weeks, as long as it doesn't cut into my Navy date time.
I mean, why don't you just bring Dave on the date? You know?
Yeah. You guys are just the third wheels, so.
Well, here's the thing. It would probably feel normal if you and Bree both came. You know what I mean?
Oh, Bree's not going to be there. It's just me.
Yeah,
it would still.
Bree's still working.
What time should you get off? 9 p.m.
Yeah. Hey, can you bring the dog?
Oh
gosh.
Man.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well.
Anyway.
Thanks, Colby. Is there anything else? Is there anything else anybody wanted to talk about before we wrap it up? It's been probably. I think we're at an hour.
All right. I don't know. I'm good. I watched some movies, but like they're not worth talking about after like Colby's great story.
Yeah, like anything. I feel like anything else that we talk about from here on out is just like ending on a dull note. So I feel like we got to go out on a high note.
I don't know if I should be like honored or like.
I think that's an honor,
dude. It's an honor, dude. Like this story was like you had me on the edge of my seat for like I think it's been I don't know like
it's a long
40 minutes. It was a long story. I was thoroughly entertained throughout the whole thing.
Like the little details actually matter.
You were recounting 12 hours worth of events. So.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well then. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Hope you tune in. Hope you tune in next week. I think Michael should be back. So back to regular hosting duties for him, and back to the sideline for me.
Back to the sideline.
Thank you for hosting tonight, Will.
Yeah, thank you, Will.
Oh yeah,
thank you
for stepping up.
No big deal. No big deal at all. Just a regular thing. So.
All right. Well, thanks for ruining that.
Oh man,
man.
All right.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Hotkeys podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, CastBox, YouTube, and other podcasting platforms. Visit our website, www.hotkeyspodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Hotkeys Podcast and join our Facebook group at facebook.com/HKHotkeys. Please like and review us and subscribe to the show on whichever platforms you use. Finally, you can contact us via email at hosts@hotkeyspodcast.com.